My name is Ewan Sandra McKinney. I am a translator. I am the vice president of the Sami Writer Centre Chalagwata. I work as a teacher and I'm also a poet. And I want to start before introducing you to today's first talk. I want to start by welcoming you to Umeå with Umeå's own yoik, not the yoik of the river, but the yoik of the city itself, which only last week was officially given its right to have its name in Umeå on street signs. So until last week, that was forbidden. So we'll start with the yoik of Umeå. So that's the city of Umeå. Now, in today's first seminar, Centers of Periphery 2.0 Unlearning History, which is hosted by KROKODIL and the Swedish Institute, we're faced with an important and much needed discussion on power and the power of creativity, I would say, as a catalyst for positive change and collaboration in a time when the world is getting increasingly more polarized. Today's discussion will center experiences of literature and art as a vehicle for reconciliation and compassion, as well as its role as a challenger of normative scripts and a site of resistance. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to all our guests today. Ćurčin is a Serbian singer-songwriter based in Belgrade and rooted in a mix of Americana, folk, and pop. So give her a round of applause and she can come up to the stage. She is going to be joined on stage by Maša Kolanović, she holds a PhD in Croatian literature and she works as a professor at the Croatian Academy of Sciences and Art in Zagreb. So give her a round of applause. And in turn, they are going to be joined by Faruk Šehić, a Bosnian writer of novels, short stories, and poetry, who returned to literature after the Bosnian War, from what I've understood. So give him a round of applause. And today's panel discussion, which I'm really looking forward to, is going to be chaired by none other than Mima Simić, who is a poet, writer, academic, and activist, who was also Croatia's first openly out LGBTQ plus political candidate. So give them all a warm round of applause, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for this beautiful introduction, which also puts a very high bar, I would say, for us. We need to solve the crisis of the world. So thank you all for coming. And I'm also surprised at the turnout. It's very nice of you to come here. All right. So yes, and thanks to the Swedish Institute, right? This is what I always have to say. Otherwise, they take the money away. Okay, so obviously, the 90s have been what?
We had an opening credits.
Okay, let's look at the opening credits. was worth it, right? Yes. Okay. What I really like about this panel here that we have people here from slightly different generations and different republics of the former Yugoslavia, and this also places them and all of us in slightly different positions when during the 90s war. So maybe I mean, like, you are here to learn from us because this whatever is happening in the world now at large has already happened on a micro level with our own land. So yes, it's not going to be good. So maybe the best person to start with would be Faruk Šehić, who was the oldest among us here when the war started, and he actually was already, I would say you were already a grown-up, so to speak, and you were in a position to be both a poet and a warrior. So maybe this, and the question, of course, here is like, how do we recognize that the war or the crisis is happening? You know, also we need to say that in the 90s there was no internet and there was no, I mean, the media and the technology was not so developed that the news were on a much, I would say, smaller scale, but you still had to learn to read the speeches. You needed to learn to read the tone and between the lines, and then so how was it for you, Faruk, with respect to all these kind of, I mean, what were the signals for you as a 20? How old?
22.
22, correct? Yeah.
It's yeah. Even it was visible because the war first started in Croatia. So I'm from Bosnia.
Yeah.
We are in the middle of ex-Yugoslavia, geographically in the middle. And when I was in Croatia, I know that war will come into our country, in Bosnia. But
How did you? So you said you knew. I mean, the war in Croatia. I mean, officially it started in 1991. I would think. Yeah. So you were there like.
student, yeah.
Yeah. So you were studying, and what were the first signals that you recognized here?
Because I was a young person, but I was very interested into not politics, but like we are all political beings. So I go because I declared myself as a Yugoslav before the all war started. So I was interested to see what will happen with our homeland.
I mean, it's also interesting to say. I would like to speak to the audience who maybe don't know that in Yugoslavia there were so the main identity was Yugoslavian, but there were nationalist kind of movements within these particular republics and people who would not necessarily declare themselves as Yugoslav. So this was also
Minority.
yes, this was actually a minority and a kind of a political position. I mean, somebody who actually believes in the idea of whatever it is, brotherhood and unity, or some kind of like wider scope of solidarity among the nations, I would say.
For me, it was visible and easy to make conclusion that war will start in Bosnia very soon and very fast, because if you nowadays, if you go in the past, you go to archive, you will find the speeches from the politicians, from the especially Serbian nationalist politicians from Bosnia, for example, like Radovan Karadzic, and you don't need to be bright mind to unlock this this metaphor, you know, like he said in the assembly of Bosnia. He said, if you do this, if Bosnia will go out of Yugoslavia, we will one nation will cease to exist. And he was threatening that nation was Bosniaks, how said, Muslims. And he said, you go on the highway of the, he said, I will say it now in Bosnian, Autostrada Pakla. It's like highway to hell. You entering in the zone of the extermination. So it was obviously, but you know.
But why do people not believe politicians when they actually? I mean, like, you know, they say believe people when they tell you who they are, and this is
It's because I don't know, people strongly believed in brotherhood and unity and this idea of socialistic Yugoslavia, and the people, I mean, you know, it's sometimes people wants to, it's like, kako se kaže, puste želje, zaboravio sam. Ono,
Wishful thinking.
wishful thinking.
Yeah.
It's like you want to deceive yourself, you know. They don't want to see the truth, what is happening in front of their eyes, and you know, it's deeply in the human nature that you denied reality. I know, for example, when war started in my city, and in other city, 33 kilometers away, people sitting on the sun. It was April 1992, and they drink coffee, they eat pizzas, they drink beer, whatever, and you know, days were sunny and hot, warm, and you know, we are in the hell, and they are in the normal life. So people never believe that shit will happen to them. It's always the hell is out there in the other people, not in me, not in us.
But what was the moment for you when you realized, okay, from this position of somebody who's observing and seeing that this is happening, now I have to act in the sense of I'm gonna enter the war with my body, not just my words and not my just observations. I mean, this is a very radical kind of decision on your part.
Yes, I decided it was like my birthday, 14th of April, and I decided I will go tomorrow after party, and I have my cousin Edo, and he said to me, okay, you go, I will come later, but he never come. It's always a personal choice, and it's, you know, it's like, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in my city and with people I know, with my father, mother, and sister, and everybody. It's because I realized back then, in that moment, I realized that the Yugoslavia is not existing anymore. After the war in Croatia, it's Yugoslavia ceased to exist for me, and I wanted to be in my city, you know, and to share the fate like every other person, and then I realized that I don't have a reserve country. That is my country, you know. I don't have spare.
That was Sweden always.
yeah. It's last night I met 3 women from Bosnia, and one of them came during the war here.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think, 100,000 people that came to.
So that was my personal decision.
Yes.
And you know, when you have 22, you are, I don't know. I'm that kind of spirit. I'm very active person. I don't want to give my fate into your hands. I want to be in charge if I can. So my decision to go to back in my hometown, and it was that you know, like, you know, I want to fight for my destiny, for my life. Because I know if you are passive, you will end up in the concentration camp. They can kill you, rape you, or whatever. And so it was my personal decision. And when the war started, I was civilian. I was sitting in the coffee bar Casablanca on terrace. I drink beer and I have Levi's jeans, and you know, like normal people from middle class, Yugoslavian middle class back then. And later I find a weapon, and I was still without uniform. So in a way, I'm not enlisted because we didn't have army. And I was not volunteer, so the situations force you to become warrior or fighter, or later I became officer, and because you know, I'm not talented, but you know, to be like soldier, but I was in a way. I never imagined that I will be a fighter. You know, because I was writing poetry. You know. And back then in the 80s in Bosnia, in our city, you know, when you said that you're a poet, you know, it was
Gay.
Yeah, queer. It was gay. It was queer, literally, yeah. So
So you had to show them that you're not.
so, yeah. So very often I said the war liberated me. I mean, it's funny, but it's real, because after the war, I start to see everything so clear, you know, because during the war I write some poetry, and it was like some surrealistic bullshit, and you know, full of metaphors, and even I can't understand it.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah, but later I always want to describe my experience and experience people surrounding, and I tried. It was not easy. It requires several years of writing bullshit, surrealist poetry. Then in one day, like it was just like I am entering in some new space, and in which I see everything like on microscope, and I can see the stars and the celestial bodies and the like microscopic beings. You know, it was suddenly, you know, I was able to describe everything what I want, you know, and it came in short sentences, in very precise, direct words, without metaphor. You know, obviously, all that material was inside of me, so I need just to find some kind of key to unlock the form and the language and the figures of style, and later it became very easy.
Wow, okay. Let me switch to Maša, because Maša was a child, I would say, and growing up in Zagreb, which was not necessarily directly hit by war, but there was war, and there was sirens, and there was bomb shelters. And your book, Underground Barbie, deals with this period, and how children process whatever is going on. So, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming here. I was 11 years old when war started in Croatia, and as you said, I lived in Zagreb, where war was not so strong, but you know, it exists everywhere. War is not just bombing, it's also the language of war, the propaganda. The whole country needed to, you know, change into something else. We needed to switch, you know, our identity. And you as a kid, 11 years old, you still, you know, you don't understand everything fully, but you can track, you know, there's something weird going on. And I think that was a formative experience for me, seeing, you know, these big changes, something which was, you know, very important, official yesterday was, you know, worthless the day, you know, after tomorrow. Everything was falling apart. And I think that this gave me, even though it marked our childhood, we were kids, we didn't have, you know, regular, you know, childhood, but still we kept all those things from, you know, which each childhood has. But I think it gave me some kind of, you know, critical distance of everything. Maybe if it wasn't the war, I would not be, you know, dealing with, you know, literature, analyzing things, and so on. And after, you know, as growing up in Croatia, you know, as, you know, 11 years old, you will just need to take this new identity as some sort of a new code. You know, after being a pioneer, you need to become, you know, new.
Yeah, we were pioneers when we were like, you enter like elementary school, you get a little cap and a red scarf, and then you Tito's pioneer. It was very cute. I liked it.
Yeah, and you know, the day after it was, you know, big no. You know,
the next day, you know, it's like
you have to be ashamed of, you know, being a pioneer, and it's. You know, the worst thing about war is that it actually never ends. I would say even today, we are just going back and back and back, and it's always gonna just kind of pop up somewhere as long as there's a live memory of war going on. That's the worst thing, you know. That's, for example, where the war in Ukraine started, I was like so sad, and it triggered so many memories. And even then, I was like obsessively watching the documentaries about Yugoslavia and watching it with some other eyes, watching it as a real human anthropological tragedy. And I was thinking, you know, now, you know, our friends in Ukraine are in the same situation, but they don't know what comes after and after and after. And 30 years after, it's still going to haunt them, you know, the war is still going to haunt them and mark, you know, many generations after. And also just come back to Underground Barbie. after, the war ended, we had this really strict narrative, we were attacked, we were defending, we wanted to be independent and so on. But this narrative kind of silenced down. Some other things started to creeping out, like, oh, but we were not so clean. We also did, shitty things in war. And then you started to see, okay, this writer was expelled because of saying this on that. And I started to, going through, I needed to find my own narrative about war, because saying this, official narratives we were being taught, I felt them, this is just not truth I can tell. I feel like I'm telling a lie. And then I was wondering, what is the most authentic thing for me to say? It was just writing down my experience. Being a kid, playing in basement with Barbie dolls, and just soaking all that language of war, which also penetrated into kids' play and everything. And I thought this is just the most honest thing I can do. So I also rewritten my experience with, these new insights I gained mostly through literature, through writers such as Dubravka Ugrešić in the first place, because after reading her text and seeing what she went through, as a political dissident back then, advocating for peace, criticizing all types of nationalism. It also influenced my writing and my thinking of war. So yeah, that's.
I think it's interesting because Faruk said, it seems that his poetry came to him from a very visceral, I would say like combat. But for you, it took, obviously because you were a child then, took some kind of gestation, I would say. But how did you, through your education, what were your steps of when you realized you're a novelist, that this is the fiction is the way to enter? Because Underground Barbie didn't start as a novel. You were doing some other research, as far as I know.
Yes. It started with a seminar on popular culture and researching Barbie doll, and then I read this really great book from Erika Rentz called Barbie's Queer Accessories, which is saying the thesis of this book is basically that Barbie is not just what Mattel is posting on us, but what we do with this toy. So we as consumers, as citizens, have this power, to create our meaning of Barbie. And back then I was like, I thought I would just write maybe a book about Barbie in Croatia and so on, but my memories started to creep out, and I just couldn't stop myself, going into that period. It was buried somewhere deep inside of me and just pop up. It took Barbie as an excuse. But then, this story about the war pop up, and I wrote a story that Mattel probably never imagined how Barbie can be used in this situation. But then I started also to think about it conceptually as a concept, how this idea of kids play and being creative in this horrible time is, for me, it was the source of the resistance, against war. Kids play, creativity against these, masterminds of war and propaganda. And then this concept kind of pop out. But of course, all these, readings before make me think about, what was happening back then? What did we know? What was hidden from us? And it's still going on. Yeah. And at the moment we think we are, one step further. We just find ourselves on the floor and, at the beginning as a, Sisyphus, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This panel has been sponsored also by Mattel. I'm going to interject because this was also my I know I'm here just as a humble moderator, but I'm going to insert myself because I have the power. Faruk just said he doesn't want anybody to control him, but I'm actually controlling all of you here. No, I was 16, so I was between the two of you when the war started in Croatia, and I was in Zadar. Zadar was under siege, and it was heavily shelled for a while, and we went to school. And that's when I wrote my first book of short stories that had nothing to do with the war. It was this detective, female detective with her. It was a parody of Sherlock Holmes, but it was so full of destruction. Like this woman was punishing innocent people, just like she was solving crimes, but there was never a crime. It was just innocent people getting killed, and by her and her companion. It was very funny, I think. It's still, I mean, like we made an animated film out of it. It still kind of resonates with me and my wife, but. Point being is, like, when I was looking at this book like a decade or more later, so I wrote it at 16. It was kind of fun. We were in the shelters and my friends would like, oh, write another episode. They had a lot of fun with this. And then I look back at it and I'm like, this is fucking war literature. Because, you know, like, I couldn't deal with this shit. And when we talk about like unlearning history, how to read the news, how, you know, we also had like 3 kinds of news. You had Croatian news, you had Serbian news, you had CNN. And I would watch everything. And they all had different stories. And I was in the middle of the town that they were talking about, and nobody could tell me what's happening to me at that moment. And then I started hating history. I mean, actually, I really distrust any fucking... I trust more fiction. I mean, like fiction in a way of kind of emotional historization of events than the actual histories. Because, like, for instance, my wife, she grew up in the 90s, and at school they didn't learn about the Yugoslav wars because they said, and this was like 20 years after the war, and they said like, oh, not enough time has passed for us to be teaching about the war. So they're like washing their hands. And actually, you know, they don't want to teach about Croatian crimes because Croatia also committed crimes. We had fucking concentration camps in the middle of Croatian cities for the Serb citizens. I mean, so it was insane, but this is too complex to deal with. And like my reaction was, okay, I'm writing this very destructive prose to save myself. I don't trust history anymore. I'm kind of, so he went, you know, to war with us. His body, I was like retreating into some kind of like negation of everything, and so this is really interesting how we all have different strategies, and I think it's also connected to what time in our lives, and of course some gender and sexual orientation, but truly, I mean, this is interesting how we take on. As I said, different strategies to deal with this destruction, this insanity, how to keep sane, and you know, like maybe Anna as the one that the singer songwriter, and she comes from Serbia. I wanted to ask you. I don't know if I ever asked you. Were you in Belgrade in the 2000 when it was bombed by NATO?
No, I wasn't. In 1991, I'm 6 years old, and we're still living with my family in Belgrade. And very quickly, we have a scenario of the people who left Serbia, and we moved to Russia, and that's the country I grew up, and it shaped me pretty much in everything that I am today. And I have been watching this war as from this safe distance, you can say, but it has always influenced us and has shaped me in many ways, and especially for the future when I come back in my early 20s and I start traveling as a musician throughout Yugoslavia and kind of have this revisit of the history of my own country, of Yugoslavia, and reshaping the whole world again. But from this perspective that I've been kind of torn from my home country, from my home city, and have this completely not denial, but also kind of this emotional revisit of everything that has happened and how different perspectives.
But how was it in Russia? I mean, how was it? You said you were in Russia and you were following. I mean, we know that Serbia and Russia are friends. You know, like right now in Serbia, there's a huge denial of, you know, Putin's crimes. So this is like the official. And Krokodil has been making so many actions pro-Ukraine, and they have been vandalized, the offices. So I mean, there's a huge solidarity between Serbia and Russia. So
there's this huge division in that as well. There's huge solidarity between Serbia and Russia, but it also many citizens are also in solidarity with Ukraine.
Yeah, but I wondered, when you were growing up and when you were looking at the wars as a kid, what kind of, you know, like narrative were you exposed to from Russia?
Well, my childhood self has the narrative of Russia supporting Serbia, and that's the Serbs are the brothers and the sisters, and we are defending each other. We're gonna stand up for each other, and that's the narrative that has been active even today, and that the Russians are going to be here to save us. They're going to save the day. They're going to send us oil. They're going to do something and support us, and somehow the situation today, having several 100,000 of Russians in Belgrade, you have this also again this strong unity of and. So this is ongoing. So and it's a narrative that we still live today. That the Russians and Serbs are kind of joining forces in some way, in official narrative.
Yeah. I wanted to ask one thing. You said you started touring the former Yugoslav region, and one thing about when the war started, I remember one of the movements, the cultural movement, was like to expel everything that was Serbian from Croatian. I don't know, from the libraries you kick out all the books in Cyrillic, or all the. I mean, there was a huge censorship of anything that came from Serbia, even the stuff that was anti-war from Serbia. So. And there was a huge kind of embargo, cultural embargo that was going on for a long time. Now it's more, there is more of exchange. But when you started touring, was there like a thirst in other countries, for Serbian
I would say that
artists?
this is kind of a sub-narrative that especially since I come from this alternative music scene, and I've been also singing in English a lot in the early days, and the alternative folk scene in Belgrade is also very small in terms of the audiences and the venues where we play, and I kind of believe, and I've also worked in theater at the same time, so this building bridges in terms of narrative and connecting and reconnecting has been my idea of how I want to travel and perform, but also the community that I shared and existed in and kind of traveled through in the 2000 from 10 to 20 in those days. So maybe not so much hunger, but also hunger to reconnect. Yes, it's not a let's say like a mainstream narrative, because mainstream narrative still excludes and doesn't include this kind of idea. Let's work together. Let's do something together. But the community that I've been in and the idea that I wanted to kind of also integrate in my own music and the things that I do with my music, what has been always let's do it together. And I've always tried to build this bridge through my music in the small ways that I was able. Okay, I'm gonna invite a singer-songwriter from Zagreb. I'm gonna invite somebody from other country and hope that we are gonna have this idea to support each other and to kind of build these bridges together. And that's how I've been trying to work and the community I've been in. And I know that musicians and my colleagues and friends have been doing the same, and you as well. And since the day we started doing something in culture.
Thanks. Faruk, back to you. You mentioned your... I know, she's a singer. She just wants you to ask her to sing. She doesn't want to talk. You were talking about your poetry, but then you moved on to prose, and your most famous actual book is Quiet Flows the Una, or Roman o Uni, which won the European prize for literature, and it has now been translated to German finally, right? Recently. So this was moved from the direct talking. I mean, like, war has been your obsession, obviously, but this novel was a kind of a move from the, I would say, what you were talking about earlier. So how has this topic stayed with you in various kind of literary outputs of yours?
Back then in 2005, I wanted to make a novel about nature.
Good luck.
Because I was branded, like stamped, like a war writer, and I was fed up with that. And people after the war, there is a lot of people who said, okay, now we should forget everything. And I know it's deeply human. I mean, it's normal reaction. But in other way, if you are dealing with the past, you know that it's wrong way. It's putting on the carpet, that's never work. We know that from Second World War. And so I was in some kind of pressure. Or maybe I imposed pressure on myself. And I said, okay, now I like, because I was grow up on one beautiful small city on the river Una in the West Bosnia, and I spent all my childhood there in the house of my grandmother, and that house was on the river bank, and house was a little bit sinking. When you are in the kitchen, you are like this, like. So everything was so alive. For example, inside of the rooms, you can smell the sand from the river, because sand from the river is used as a material from the facade inside. And it seems from when I was a little boy, it was like house is alive. And back then I didn't know that I will use that as a metaphor. This kind of thinking, it is a metaphor, huge metaphor about the time or our epoch that sink into this disaster and destruction. So I started to write about streams, about river island. There is a lot of river island there. You have like main stream and lot of streams, and there is other river 6 kilometers long, and Krušnica, and she merged with Una, and you have long, like kilometers long river island. You have football stadium, 2 football stadium there, and a lot of fishes, a lot of animals, insects, everything. It's so green and lush, and we lived for the summer. Summer was like peak of all year, because when we was small and young, we want to swim and dive, and that's my book starts. I imagined like this, and I was working like I don't know how much time, 1 year, and I have like 15 pages, and I see something is not okay. Because how can you write a book about nature without any kind of dynamics, without drama, without, who will be characters except the river and the house and the grandmother? And then I realized, okay, why I'm escaping from the topic? I must put everything inside. So it is about the city and the grandmother house, and during my childhood and the war period and after post-war time. So then I succeed to finish the book, because I was not escaping from anything, and I just step aside with this pressure, out of this pressure, dome, like, and relax myself, and it's like very poetical book, and it's not about exactly about war, but there is, for example, one of the longest chapter is about war crimes that I saw personally, and so it's war crime from the army in which I was the officer back then, or soldier. So it's nothing is hidden, everything is clear. So of course that it was not popular among right wings people, nationalists and blah blah blah. But it was like really great success, because it's not book for everyone, because there is no plot, typical plot, and it's translated in many languages, awards and everything, and I hope so it will be in Swedish also.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it was attempt to escape from something that you don't need to escape.
I just realized we're like running. Time is like flying when you're in good company. I would actually want to see if we're here for you. Is there any question, like any burning question, or not even burning, like mild, lukewarm question from the audience? Are you shy? A sweet shy? Okay, here, my wife has a question. Of course. Yes, we'll go on a date later. Yes. Yes, because Eurovision is the most. I mean, you came here to talk about Eurovision, obviously, and no, but actually, it's really interesting how to use these popular kind of platforms for political engagement. I mean, like it's everything is politics. People are political beings. So Anna recently went on a Serbian competition for you.
Yeah, that was a very bad idea.
No, it was, I think, me and another friend
before
gave
we
you
start
this
talking
idea.
about Eurovision, I just want to say that as soon as we begin this panel, and this is the feeling that I've been also, because we're unlearning history, and we're also unlearning emotional history of our lives, and talking about our growing ups and our youths. But also, I just wanted to highlight that as soon as we started talking about this, I have this fear that has been crumbling through my body throughout the whole discussion, as I'm remembering also my childhood. And I, as a child back then, I remember this feeling that was creeping throughout everyday life, because you know something terrible is happening, but you cannot really process it as a child. And you just made me realize that I need to unlearn this emotional history of my own memory of my own childhood, and to try to revisit it through maybe a therapy process, to go back through these emotions and revisit them as an adult, to be able to apprehend the whole responsibility and the whole kind of I don't know, to go through it and come to a new place in terms of unlearning this childhood history of our own lives.
But you personally, but also us as societies. I mean, this is one of the problems, because this has not been
but
done.
This is ongoing, of course, and this feeling comes back as soon as there's a problem, there's an issue. There are these narratives, speeches, protests, and we also have this everyday life of course, resistance and the government doing terrible things, and this feeling has been following us, me impersonally throughout my whole life, as in like, okay, something is happening and we cannot control it, and we just need to adapt to it. Maybe move away, maybe shut down, maybe do something about it. Okay, but Eurovision. We have a local competition for the Eurovision, as every country does, and I had this terrible idea as a folk alternative singer-songwriter to join the contest last year, as it was some kind of a platform to promote your own music, and we had this actually nice trend of alternative musicians joining the competition the last few years, and it's been kind of nice for me to see that, okay, the whole music genre platform is changing a little bit, and the audience reacts well to it, and it's not only terrible pop and bad music, but it's also I'm joking. It's a matter of a taste, but it's also bad. But yeah, you have this some kind of a diversity, let's say. And I was like, okay, let me try this. And basically, as a musician in Serbia, doing the alternative rock music, I'm not in turbo folk or trap or whatever is happening at the same time that is mostly popular, but I have this small audience and I'm fine with it. But this is a kind of something, let's do something different, let's do a show, let's participate in a show. But what happens at the same time, that we have this tragedy in Novi Sad, and 16 people die under a roof on a railway station, and the student protests begin, and it happens at the same time where we're applying to this contest, and it's being broadcasted on a Serbian national television, and we have protests coming in from November, and the Serbian local Eurovision contest happening in January, February. And the situation, the context is that at the same time, the Serbian national television is corrupted by the government, and has not been mediating the news and delivering the protests in the right way, in the true way. They have been denied any space in the media for the students to share the true side of the story, and they have been kind of this snugging away and a kind of
censorship.
Censorship. But so the students decide to also block the broadcast and to not sabotage. What's the right way? To boycott the national television when the contest is happening. So like, oh my God, how is this happening? And at the same time, when I have to be on the show, but the problem is that I would easily, as I was supporting the students and going on protest, I would easily get away from this contest. But we signed a contract. Imagine the F word in between, and the contract has tied us to the broadcast television, saying that if we pull out the contest at the time when the contract is already signed, we have to pay I don't know, 10,000 euros per participant, and it's 3 of us, and I have a crew and all that. So it's kind of impossible. And what happened is on the contest in the show is that okay, we're gonna do whatever we can. We're gonna show support to students, and we're gonna show resistance in ways that we can. And this is what happened. Yeah. It's a moment where you as a musician, as a singer-songwriter, even though as a private person I'm gonna be as political as I can, and I'm gonna go and join the protest, but I don't usually choose to do this publicly as a public person. It's my own decision. I sometimes feel comfortable about it, sometimes I don't, and I kind of learned that I have this right to choose what I want to do and what I don't want to do. But this is a very, very public space that I'm now in this show, and yeah, you have to pull your guts and show where you stand for and what you stand for, and yeah, it's been.
I mean, it was a very symbolic and very important moment. The symbol of the protest. Yes, I have to look at the time. They're going to kick us out. I'll be very brief, blah, blah. The very powerful, I mean, the symbol of the protest was this, like, bloodied palm.
Right hand, yeah.
Yes. So Anna, at the end of the song, you know, she was contract bound, but they didn't tell her, like, how she can move in the stage. So she had her palm.
No, actually, they would ask you throughout the show, because it's a national broadcast, and of course the people running the show, they have to kind of stand on the side of the government, but they also there's people who are for the students, there are people who are against and for the pro-government and etc. So they kind of were like, okay, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? They would probably know who's gonna do something or not. So they would like ask you, are you doing something? Are you doing something? And the people would not show and say. But I was kind of very transparent about it, because we have a lot of rehearsals, and I wanted to be kind of transparent to the people producing the show, because I mean, they're people too. We're working together. So I was actually showing the red palm throughout the whole rehearsal process, saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and just get ready for it. I'm going to do it. And what they still did is that, like, zoomed out as much as they can.
But it was still, no, but it was still seen.
But yeah, I was kind of fair about it towards the people producing the show as well, but also kind of saying, okay, I'm doing this, whatever you do, I'm gonna do this, and you can do whatever you want. It's on your part. If you're gonna censor me, it's on your part. If you're not, I mean, let's see where we're gonna get. Yeah.
So the point of all this, we can all, you know, some of you will write novels, poetry, teach at the universities, be at the Eurovision Song Contest. And let's all do what we can. And like, I mean, I'm sorry I don't have more time. And we were supposed, guys, catch them outside if you want. Ask them personal questions. Anna is taking offers for gigs, weddings, funerals. Thank you all for protests, of course. Thank you all for coming here. It was great having you. Thanks.
It was a wonderful talk to listen to. So nice to hear you talk about. I was born in 1987, and some of my best friends were, as you said, refugees. When I grew up, were refugees that came from Yugoslavia, and it's so nice to kind of hear these stories and how. And it's not nice, it's sad to hear these stories, but it's good to hear these stories. We want to give you a gift from LITTFEST, and it's a deck of cards, and I feel like that is really what war is all about. You are dealt cards and you don't really know what to do with them because someone else decides. You just lose. So here you go. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.